Let me show you how to create easy motion blur effects like this in After Effects for still images. It's a very, very cool tip. Thank you so much to Roland Kreutzer who brought this to my attention on the DAZ Discord. Really appreciate that you shared that with me. Thank you so much. And yeah, this is After Effects, and I'm super new to After Effects, but you're going to be able to follow along no problem. I have as a source footage, I've had this, which is the default. Whoops, let's reset that here. This is the, my goodness, stop doing that. It's the default Camilla from iClone and Character Creator spinning around, and I've rendered that out as an image sequence, and then I've imported that into After Effects. And if I wanted to convey her spinning around on a still image, motion blur would be really nice. And traditionally I would have rendered 3 or 4 images out and then composited them in Photoshop. But the problem was that I'd never had any control over what that looked like. I could fade other images out, but if I needed additional ones, I had to go back and render some others. And it was just, it was a very time consuming affair. And with After Effects, I can do this literally in one fair swoop. Let me show you how to do this. So we're going to go and create a brand new project here. We don't want to save this. And then we go and right click here and import our footage that's in the project window here. After Effects can be a little bit intimidating and confusing. I totally agree. First image selected, it should understand that it's a PNG sequence in my case. If not, do check it manually. And then it will also automatically create a composition for us and then open it. So in the composition window down here, we go and right click on that layer and choose Effect, Time, and then CC Force Motion Blur. That's the thing that's going to be applied to this layer. Add that, and then with that particular effect selected up here in the Effect Controls tab, we have all the controls that pertain to that effect. So motion blur samples is how many images are going to be blended together. 8 is going to be too much, but I'm going to leave it at the default for now. The shutter angle and the shutter phase, you can sort of think of that as, let's do the shutter phase first, how much forward and back the sort of underlying blend footage looks. And then the shutter angle is literally how far forward and back it goes and how many other images it blends together. So I like starting with the shutter phase. Go and select that, and well, first of all, park your playhead to where there is a bit of motion blur possibility. If there's 20 pictures of a guy standing still, then there's no way that could blur together. But here she's moving, so I'm going to go and I want this sort of effect here. So at that point, I'm going to go and dial up the shutter phase until I see other images appear here. That's sort of here. So if I go further after that point, then the effect is gone. And before that point, the effect is also gone. So somewhere here, and that's probably going to depend on the exact footage here. I'm going to go leave that here on 250, something like that. And then the shutter angle, let me go and crank that up into the thousands here until the effect just gets more and more. So you can crank that up above 360, and eventually you see that there's more images being blended together. So there's more time now basically being looked at. So that, as I said, that looks like a blurry mess now, but that's because we're blending 8 images together. So let's reduce that to something like 4 or 3 maybe. And I think that is sort of already looking not so bad. So 3, I think I might stay with 4. Let's do that, 4. And then of course also use your playhead and go backwards and forwards and see where the best position of that blend is. And I'm thinking that might be here. Now, even with 4 images, it still looks very blurry, but that's now where your original image could blend in on top of that. And then to do that, it's literally just to duplicate that layer. So edit and duplicate. That'll mix the same layer on top of that, but we don't want the effects track on here at all. And at that point, we just want to probably blend the intensity or the opacity of that layer a little bit down here. So under transform down here in the top track, we'll just drag down the opacity a little bit. So 0 is as if it's not there at all, but if you go and blend it in a little bit, then you have something that looks like Camilla is indeed in motion. And I find that really exciting because it really saves me a lot of time playing around with getting the effect, the look and feel of the effect that I want. And I would have never thought After Effects could do that even for still images. I mean, it is of course designed that you can play that back now, and it's a nice effect as a video, and that's really what it's designed for. But I think it's pretty cool to use this for render. So thank you so much, Roland, for bringing that to my attention. I think this is going to be my thumbnail for this video, something like that. Something else relatively important, how do we actually save this out? This is under composition because we don't want to render this out as a whole thing. We just want this one frame that we're currently parked on. So composition, save frame as, and you've got a couple of options here. File is just going to create a JPEG or PNG from this image mixed together as it looks like right now. Whereas Photoshop layers will export each of your tracks as one layer, including the opacity. So you have this layer and that layer separately. So all the images are going to be blended together on the bottom layer, and the top image is going to be separate, but the opacity is already going to be set to 73%. So you can go and override that in Photoshop if you want. Here's what that looks like. There we go. So 2 layers. This is the bottom. And if you want to make any adjustments on that, get some background action going there, you can do that. And this layer here already got 73%, so you can make that more or less as you see fit. Get yourself a funky background here, maybe something that matches Camilla's skirt, something like, you know, obviously not something that looks terrible. Maybe something like this. Just make it darker or something, you know. So you're going to be more creative than I am. So there we go. That's how you do that. Thank you so much for watching, and yes, thank you again, Roland, for bringing this to my attention. Take care. Bye bye.